there, folks, and welcome once again to Game Buzz, the weekly podcast here from dealspone.com, where normally we dive headfirst into the happenings from the previous 7 days in the industry news. But today we're going to do something different because it's July, because the sun's out, because fuck all has happened in the industry. So we're going to have a little look back at the last 6 months and pick out some of our favourite games from 2014 so far to kick off our halftime season. But before we do, it's time for some introductions. I'm Matt Gardner, and I'm joined once again by Jonathan Lester.
Hello.
And by Carl Phillips.
Sup, suckers.
Sup, sucker.
Mixing it up, just, you know.
Well,
nice.
You get to go first now, Carl. Yes.
No.
Tell us, dear Viceroy, what have you been playing this year that you've really enjoyed?
Well, a lot of it has been taken up with looking at bloody MMOs. So I suppose WildStar has got to be factoring up there pretty big. But on top of that, of course, I had to do the suffering in Dark Souls 2. So that was it was a really good game. It's still kind of divisive in terms of like its controls and everything else, but really enjoyed that. But I think in terms of other noteworthy things that come off the top of my head, The Walking Dead Season 2. That has been a roller coaster so far. We've only had 3 episodes, and it's been just jaw-dropping moments after jaw-dropping moments. It's been really good stuff. So out of everything so far that I can think of off the top of my head, because we've got lists up, because we were talking about this before we started. It's like, how have we forgotten about half of the games that came out this year?
It always happens.
But off the top of my head, those are things that have really stood out and impressed me so far in this half of the year.
I've got a question for you regarding The Walking Dead.
Yep.
Because I was so looking forward to starting season 2, and then it was just buggy as all hell, and I couldn't get into it. So I decided to cool off, wait for all the episodes to come out, and then jump back in. But in terms of, okay, say you're a newcomer to the series, right?
Yeah.
You didn't play season 1. Can you jump straight in with season 2?
Well, you can. I think they've got a canon version set out. So you can do it, and they've got like a recap thing of, oh, here's all of these things that happen to these characters you have no emotional attachment to because you're an idiot and didn't play season 1. But they don't actually say that, but, you know, it's kind of implied by, you know, everyone. So you can jump in. Wouldn't recommend it, though. You can get season 1 really cheaply. I would even go as far as saying that it would be worth getting hold of 300 Days as well, because they've got some characters that do pop up throughout season 2 now, and it kind of works in that it adds like an extra few hours onto the gameplay of season 1 and ups the emotional investment in season 2. So it's cheap enough. Go play season 1, find out the reason why everyone was banging on about it when that was released, and then join in with season 2 and just go, oh my god, and a lot.
That's quite interesting, because when I reviewed 400 Days, I wasn't sure. Obviously, at the time, we weren't sure how it would tie into season 2. We just had it as a sort of standalone like bridge thing, and it was a bit short. It was relatively expensive for what it was, and it wasn't really particularly satisfying. But that's very interesting that it does tie in. You say with
yes, absolutely. One character in particular is used very. Is quite key to it, but I don't know whether there's a replacement for it, because obviously I don't have a say without that DLC. But they do play into it, and I would recommend playing it all, because, you know, it's just good.
It's good to hear that, because Telltale, like, we were a bit worried. Well,
yes.
I'd say a little bit worried. You're always a little bit concerned, because it's always a difficult second album, isn't it?
Yeah, always as good as your last game. It's something that we've learned very recently with quite a few studios. So I'm glad to see that they've been able to pull it off. It makes me feel a little better about stuff that could be coming later in the year with like Borderlands, Tales of the Borderlands thing. So, but yeah, really enjoyed it, and looking forward to the next 2 episodes.
I think as well, like, they've shown that they can they can handle multiple projects at the same time, because like John, one of your, well, from your reviews at least, The Wolf Among Us has been a particular highlight of this year so far.
Ups and downs. There's been moments of intensity and just utterly compulsive, often quite disturbing storytelling, fantastic storytelling, and a great job of delivering the sort of illusion of choice. Telltale are always great at that. and the setting is fantastic too. I mean, I much preferred the first episode to any of the Walking Dead that I'd played, only because it felt new and exciting and refreshing. It was like a procedural, gritty 80s cop drama. Almost, but with the extra fairy tale angle. But there's been a couple of real missteps so far, and because we're still waiting on the last episode, that's out next week.
Yeah.
It's actually going to be difficult to call how well this series stacks up as a whole, because there have been 2 absolutely astounding episodes, both of which I awarded a 9 out of 10 to, and then there's been sort of I believe 5 and 6s, if I recall properly. Just really inconsistent pacing. But yeah, I mean, to be honest, it really hasn't been a highlight of my year. It's been a really in a slow year. In say 2012, I think it would have been a highlight of my year. But already I'm just having a fantastic time playing loads of I haven't stopped playing great games since the start of the year. And I don't just mean the likes of The Secret World, which is still occupying an inordinate amount of my time. I'm talking about games that have released this year. I think it's quite possible that my personal GOTY of the year has already released in Danganronpa Trigger Happy Havoc, which is one of the best in terms of storytelling. I mean, we've already covered The Walking Dead, we've covered The Wolf Among Us. Danganronpa, for me, is right up there. It is just to explain why would completely ruin the game.
Yeah.
But suffice to say that it is a very different kind of visual novel. It's a fantastic fusion of really horrific storytelling and themes with really clever, almost Phoenix Wright style detective work. It's great. It's really, really great. Handhelds have just been pumping out these great stuff as well, like Etrian Odyssey Untold, like Memories of Celsator. For me, as a JRPG fan and just general localization fan, I mean, Reef Entertainment and NIS America have been pumping out games for the Vita, have been pumping out games for the 3DS and for the PS3 as well. And then there was Titanfall.
Yeah, there was that little game.
Yeah.
I think, well, we were all excited for it, and it was really good. It still is really good.
It still is. But the thing is, we did a whole podcast about this, and I think, to be perfectly honest, like, it's almost, I'd actually even suggest you link to it, dude. Like, it's every complaint, every criticism that we all brought against it is still valid now. They've done a good job at adding a new rotating game mode. They've added lots of, they've added custom decals and stuff, so you can customize your Titans by completing challenges. They've added new voices. You know, you can now make your Titan sound like a posh English butler if you want. Obviously, you want to do that. I mean, clearly you want to do that. Obviously, but the matchmaking is still ropey. And it's obsessed with the problem is I'm still find myself like playing Hardpoint, one of the biggest game modes, and still find myself in a team of 6 people waiting for it to find another team of 6 people rather than just splitting it into 3-on-3 and starting the freaking game and then just adding new players in while the map's loading. It's just the problem is the game itself, I feel, is evergreen. I genuinely feel that Titanfall is evergreen. It's a game that I will continue, even without any of the metagame. I would keep playing simply because it's fun and it plays out differently every time. It's rare that and it makes most other multiplayer FPS games feel really flat. But it's bizarre. A game that burns really brightly for a couple of months is now actually kind of difficult to recommend.
Yeah, it's something that, like, you're right. When I do get round to playing the odd game again every now and then, I really like it. But I don't know, like, in many ways, when I was going back through my list, it kind of got subsumed by a whole bunch of other stuff. I was expecting, actually, if you'd asked me at the top of the year what games that we might have been looking back on right now, Titanfall would have been at the top of my list, but it hasn't been the case. Like, kind of, I don't know, I loved it for about 2 or 3 weeks, and then I've kind of forgotten about it in a way. It's kind of yeah.
Yeah, it's the same with me. I really enjoyed it for the first week or so, and then I don't know. There wasn't that real need to go back and play it, except when I did it with the joystick, and that was awesome. But
That's awesome. If you haven't seen that video, go
Yeah.
check it out.
Yep, totally did it. But that for me, there was just no real draw to go back. I mean, you could say, well, it's one of those games that's really easy to pick up and play and just get in and just stomp around at a time. But of course, as we've seen with the whole having to wait for lobbies and everything else, that wasn't necessarily true. And
Yeah,
so
that's what's really killing it.
and that's why I didn't really return, because I was sat around waiting for stuff to happen all the time, and the lack of variation in game modes kind of put me off it. It was fun, but not the kind of fun that made me want to go back in and play it repeatedly. Like, not Unreal Tournament levels of fun, if that makes any sense.
It totally does make sense, or even like comparing it to a console game, even sort of Halo levels of fun, where you've got that extra variation,
Yeah.
where you got that heightened social scene,
Absolutely.
where if you're into that sort of thing, and I like this sort of thing. Don't get me wrong. Where if you're into chasing ranks and unlocks, I love being rewarded for kicking ass with a cool looking helmet or something. I love that sort of stuff. And yeah, it seems to me like they could still fix this. The latest patch was good. The latest map pack was great, legitimately great. But I don't know. I feel like without a concerted effort to sit down and sort out their netcode, like before the end of this month, like before the summer's over, because they need people to be playing it now.
Yeah.
While there's no competition. By the time all the big stuff comes out, by the time the likes of
So October.
Oh yeah, good
basically.
point. Battlefield. I was going to say before the likes of Battlefield Hardline comes out, but I don't think that's going to be an issue. But I think Advanced Warfare is going to give it a run for its money, and
Destiny.
Destiny, especially Destiny as well. So yeah, Titanfall, interesting position. One of my favourite games of the year, but one that I'm not sure I could necessarily recommend to you right now.
Yeah, it's a funny one, that one.
Yeah, it's weird, isn't it?
Carl, a game that I was considering adding to my sort of top 3 of this year. I think a game that I've sunk many hours into, and I know you have too. Actually, a really old game given a fresh lick of paint. Final Fantasy X HD.
Yes, that's a very good point. That came out this year.
It did. Well, it came out over here this year. It came out on my birthday this year. Woo!
Yeah. Lovely.
Here in the UK, and I know, like, I've railed against certain HD remakes because I still think that remaking a year-old game is a bit suspect. But there has been a call for this one, and I think they did it really well.
They did. The upgrading to so it's like making the graphics look better. I think that the soundtrack was tweaked in just the right ways that made me feel like I remember the sort that sounds, but given that sort of like, I don't know, I'm trying to think of the right way to say it. They just created this perfect mix of kind of like adding in like guitars and everything like that at the right point that made me just go, oh yes, every time there was a fight. And it was just great to go back and revisit one of the more interesting worlds in Final Fantasy, and visit these characters that I absolutely fell in love with back when I was playing it in 2002, 2003. Or was it 2004? I can't remember. Back then, anyway, it's just been really, really good. I mean, I still haven't finished off 10 because I'm going through it. My plan is to 100% it, and so I'm just going through it when I've got time, just like leveling up, capturing monsters, that sort of thing. But the things because obviously I bought, because I'm a huge fanboy of this game, I bought both the PS3 and the Vita version so I could do the cloud save, continuing when I'm on the go thing. They did a really good job of porting it over to the Vita. There is a bit of slowdown compared to the PS3 version, but it works really well. And the added extra things where you can, when you're out in the world, like heal up your characters on the go just by doing a swipe of the screen and stuff is really cool. It was just really great to go back and visit that game.
The thing I love about the Vita version, because that's kind of the only one I have.
Yeah.
The thing I love about the Vita version is that, well, it makes save points kind of redundant. I like that.
Absolutely.
I love the fact that I don't have to sit down for 20 minutes, half an hour, and know that, okay, I've got to hit the next save point before I can stop. I love that on the Vita,
put it in standby.
It's actually really pick up and play. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter. You could be in the middle of a battle and like someone like something really important happens elsewhere outside of your game world, and you have to put the Vita down to do it. It doesn't matter. You won't lose your progress. You won't have to stop. You won't have to compromise because it's just there, and it looks amazing on that OLED screen.
Oh my god,
old Vita. It looks so great.
I'll tell you what. Actually, speaking of that whole thing, I was playing it. I was in the middle of a fight. And then the battery indicator came up saying, your battery is running low. And I was there going, oh, okay, right, well, I'll just go grab the power thing. But for some reason, it immediately died. And I was there going, oh, God, I haven't saved for like an hour. And I'm in the middle of a fight. Oh, God, no. So I plug it back in. And so I have to wait for the battery to like charge up a little bit. And then it allows me to turn it back on. And the game is there as it was before the battery died, apparently. And I was there going, this is amazing. This is just like the best thing ever, because I thought I was going to have to go through an hour's worth of content again. So you know what, hats off to Sony for allowing me that kind of flexibility with my stupidity of not plugging it in sooner.
Hooray!
Hey!
I have to say, I think a few of my favorite games this year, I think Ubisoft have had an absolutely cracking start to 2014. Like Stick of Truth is definitely up there for me.
Yeah,
because it was absolutely brilliant. The two UbiArt games like that have really sort of taken headlines and plaudits, Child of Light and Valiant Hearts. I'm yet to play all the way through Valiant Hearts, but that looks, man.
I loved everything
really
I played
good.
in that. I previewed that quite extensively, and it's a very different kind of game, almost edutainment, almost.
Mm.
It's a really thought-provoking little thing.
Yeah. I'm just really looking forward to having like a weekend free where I can just go through that, because it looks fantastically interesting. And of course the UbiArt engine is amazing, and Ubisoft need to, I think you said this, John, they need to license that out.
yeah,
Everyone needs this. They're like any number of indie devs who can draw but find the process of converting their creations into sprites or into background elements time consuming and laborious would bite their own arms off in order to get their hands on an engine like this. And I mean, what have Ubisoft got to lose? Like the fact is, they could easily license this engine. It would lead to much better games. It would lead to Ubisoft, like more good press and money for Ubisoft, and also we might get a really good Worms game as well. It seems to me like if Team 17 licensed it, but it's the sort of thing that Ubisoft should do, but someone will probably accuse them of being racist somehow, or sexist, so they probably won't.
Mm.
And they'll probably make it worse with a lame excuse and put their foot in it somehow.
Oh,
It's Ubisoft. John, question for you, because this was one of your, if not the most anticipated title of this year, when we were making our predictions last year. Is Transistor on your list?
Transistor is well up there, but yeah, Transistor's really interesting because when I went through Transistor and then I went through it again in recursion mode, I was absolutely blown away. It's a really clever game. It's a really cool, self-assured, very confident game. Like it's set out to make you think, both in terms of the tactics and in terms of the setting. There's loads of lore like written there, loads of lore. The more you experiment with your builds, the more you unlock backstory text and the like. There's loads of like the story is often quite allegorical. It's often quite in depth. But yeah, it's different. It's exceptional, but it's not for me. It's not a game that actually I'm like in a year's time. I'm not necessarily going to feel the same attachment to it. Even now, I don't feel the same attachment to it as I did to Bastion. Because the thing is, Bastion, like Transistor is complex and cool as a cucumber, but Bastion was actually kind of simple. Like, it did a great job of kind of bludgeoning you with its really big, really powerful, really instantly digestible themes in that game, that without having to resort to reams and reams of text. And they did it through music. They did it through all sorts of ways. Transistor doesn't quite do that. Does that make it a worse game? No. Does that make it a less memorable game? Yes, definitely it does. But either way, I had a blast with it, and it's one that I definitely recommend you play.
Yeah, that's one I've got in my backlog that I'm just again
But
wait for a little gap.
But don't go in. The worst thing is don't go in expecting Bastion, because it's not Bastion, and frankly, I'm not convinced that any game is.
No,
really.
Bastion, and no game should really try and be Bastion, because Bastion, while amazing, it's just Bastion. Like,
yeah,
it's just great. Like, don't try and copy it, because you won't be as good as Bastion.
Yeah, by all means, learn lessons about how to tell a story in a totally non-traditional way without like reams of backstory text or like, sort of traditional cutscenes. Definitely, and learn how to tell story through choice of specific words. And like that, I'm sure that if we were to ever do a series about world building, we could probably discuss this game. But.
Maybe. I don't know. We'll have to see.
Yes, we will. See, that's how you fucking foreshadow shit, Transistor. But here's the thing. Like, just a little muscle for you there. But yeah, like Too Long zoned out version. It's good, really good.
Well, that's good. I'm looking forward. Yeah, it's one that. It's on the backlog again. It's something to get through in this quiet month of July, which is a great time for reflection. I think we haven't mentioned, there haven't been an enormous amount of really big sort of like big hitters. EA sometimes has a big month in kind of March, April, but we haven't had much this year in terms of like the big hitters, and that's kind of nice in a way because it's allowed us to get to grips with smaller things. Although I will say. The infamous Second Son, I'm going to give it a bit of a shout just because I think it's my favourite in the series, just because the central character actually has some personality. That's nice. And I think they did a really nice job of creating Seattle, making it a relatively fun place to romp around in. But one really big hitter that I do want to bring up, because I've been playing a lot of it lately, and I know you, John, in particular, have had some mixed emotions about it. Watch Dogs.
Yeah, Watch Dogs. The problem with, I think, Watch Dogs is really interesting because when it's a good game. It's a really good game. The problem is that it's also a really fat game. It's clinically obese, and yet I don't have to dick about with all of its stupid side objectives if I don't want to. And as we discussed in the previous podcast, it actually does quite a good job of giving you little nuggets of extra story for doing all of these things. But the thing is, it's a great hacking game that you can play. The problem is you've got to kind of excavate your way through. Like the way the hacking and the focus system underpins everything and works with everything is fantastic. The adventure's good. And do you know what? I found myself not hating Aiden once I'd put in several hours, because I hated Aiden for about, actually no, hate's too strong a word because that implies strong emotion. Like I just nothinged Aiden for a while and found him to be deeply inconsistent, but after a while I found myself actually sort of not necessarily liking him, but at least understanding him. Like it's sometimes nice to see a character who's actually just a bit crazy and motivated by revenge rather than justice. It's quite nice to see a character like that.
I will say this about Aiden. I think out of a lot of open world characters, and this might be down to the fact that he's boring as fuck, but it actually most of the sort of stuff you can do in the open world as him makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Apart from changing road signs to memes.
Yeah, that doesn't make much sense.
And street racing.
And the street racing. But you know what? The thing is,
doing AR and doing augmented reality challenges in the middle of a public space, thus leaving him completely vulnerable to surveillance.
I really like those. I really like those little puzzles, though. I really like the little AR things. I really like the the sort of eavesdropping, the intrusions. I think they're
Oh, those
great.
are cool. Those are
Those-
cool. I'm talking more about the, oh, hey, let's play a random augmented reality shooter game. I did it just once.
digital
like,
trips. And
yeah,
stuff like
I wiped out an entire gang headquarters, and then there were civilians running everywhere, and then started just playing an augmented reality shooter. It's like all these, amongst all the corpses and these civilians running everywhere. I was running around like shooting
that. Yeah, that
VR
doesn't make
aliens.
much sense.
No, it doesn't make sense that he could even do that. But yeah, I think it's actually, I feel it's a really strong start for the franchise.
Yeah.
But it's like, for me, it's like the polar opposite of the original Assassin's Creed. The original Assassin's Creed was skinny, but it was unique. It laid out all the unique stuff you could do with the franchise, and then said, basically, what we need to do now is put a bit more skin on its bones. Like, Watch Dogs is the opposite. They need to send it to fat camp, basically. They need to trim it the fuck down. Like, put it on a treadmill, kill the fat, and, well, probably set it somewhere where you can't buy a grenade launcher over the counter. Which, by the way, you can do in Chicago. But I know that might seem odd, but like that is, you can walk into a gun shop and buy a grenade launcher in Chicago. You can't buy the ammunition.
Yay!
You can't buy. I actually researched this because I was in the review. I was going to lay into it for like, oh my god, I can't believe you can just buy it. No, you can. It's just you can't buy the ammo is all. But yeah. So there you go. There's a little bit of info for you there. The other big problem, of course, with Watch Dogs is that, yeah, it was hyped. It was hyped.
It was hyped and
the
slightly
zoo.
mistimed. And...
But I just want to say we weren't responsible for this because we totally forgot all about it in the latter half of last year, and then remained quite cagey about it. And actually, because I loved what I saw in the production build, but after a few months had passed and they delayed it, my expectations came right down. And actually, I saw it as a game that was pretty, regardless of platform. It's a shame about the PC visuals. Hopefully, they'll sort those out. But it's a game that I felt was ambiently pretty, as well as in terms of delivering on the fine detail, especially at night. And it's a game that I found myself messing around in, with lots of challenges. Apart from a few, I found myself doing lots of things that made sense and that fit the setting, and constantly replicating my favorite scene from Blues Brothers all the time.
Oh yeah,
all the time. It was great.
Like you were right.
Yeah.
That sort of pre-review thing you did, saying get that custom playlist done, because you're right. It adds so much. It's like the Top Gun test I do with flight simulators. Like this game works with, like, you got to get some hard blues on there, and it's awesome.
Yeah, I had this weird playlist. I had a load of blues, and then I had like Smashing Pumpkins on there as well, like a bit of like My Love Is Winter on there. It was, if you like, it's like music can totally lift a game. Like if you choose the right, one of the biggest problems I think in that game is that they let you choose the soundtrack. They should have picked a soundtrack that fit the city and the tone of Aiden's own personal story. I think if they'd done that, it would have been even better. But I liked it, but I can totally understand people who bought into the hype, bought it, and then said, oh my god, it doesn't measure up, because no, it doesn't.
There are two games I want to quickly touch on before we round this thing out. One of which is Mario Kart.
Yeah, it's awesome. Buy it.
Which is fucking amazing. Buy it and you'll get a free game.
Yep.
That's that done.
Do it. You must do it. You did it.
It's super great. I did it, and I now have the Wii U arrived at the time of recording. The Wii U arrived an hour before we started recording today.
Yep.
I now
it's happened. You've done it.
Wii U. It's Nintendo. Well done.
Nintendo so you're next, Carl.
Well done. Yes, Carl. You're next.
You're next. Yes, join us, Carl.
Join
us on the Wii U. Make a Nintendo Network ID. Yes.
The other game is one that none of us have really gotten into, and I'm
Thief.
No, I think it's out of fear more than anything else.
Castlevania, Lords of Shadow.
Everyone else has been getting into it heavily.
Senran Kagura.
No, I'm talking about Hearthstone.
Oh yeah, that was. Well, Carl's got totally into that.
I did.
Yeah, man.
But I haven't played it in months.
Cool.
Why did you stop, Carl?
Two things. One, it's very, very addictive. It's one of those games that it's really well presented. Graphically, it's brilliant, and the way that it works is really easy. It's the easy to learn, difficult to master sort of setup. But it's also one of those games where if you don't have a decent like legendary card or a good setup, then you are always going to lose. It's especially to people who have put money into it, and that's kind of the thing that kind of put me off about Hearthstone. It's a great game. If you like, say, if we were all to play together, and we would have like a very level playing field in terms of the sort of cards we've got on our decks. It's good fun because you've really got to think about the tactics. But yeah, if you're playing against someone who's put money into it, you really don't stand a chance. And that's what's kind of put me off it and from going back to it, really.
Sad times.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's not exactly fair to say that there haven't been huge games this year, because actually there've been a lot of big games that sort of didn't quite explode the way they should have done. Like like if you actually look back, there have been some massive game releases this year. We're talking the Thief reboot. We're talking Ground Zeroes. We're talking The Elder Scrolls Online. We're talking a brand new Castlevania game, and that's that was a really anticipated sequel. And the thing is, none of these games. It's easy to forget about all of these games. None of them quite lived up to what we wanted from them, whether or not they were too short, Ground Zeroes, whether or not they were it's a pile of crap, Elder Scrolls. I haven't played it, but that's the sort of take-home message I took from your review.
That was not a direct quote. That is not a direct.
It does say down there in the cons, like
a steaming pile of balls.
Yeah, steaming pile of balls.
Yeah.
No. But yeah, I mean, none of these games, like the Castlevania game was a terrible, awful rush job. And, Murdered Soul Suspect, again, that was another big one. Shame about the execution. All these games talked a big game. But when it came right down to it, they didn't deliver on the execution. And for me, that's been brilliant, because it's let all... Oh, by the way, a lot of people can legitimately put Watch Dogs in that list as well.
Yeah.
For a lot of people, that didn't measure up, and I totally understand that. But for me, it's been brilliant, because it's let the little gems shine through even more. It's let the likes of Danganronpa and TXK and even early access games like Broforce really come out and shine through and get their time in the sun. It's been a really good year for me.
It has. It's been we haven't stopped playing new, refreshing, awesome games, which is quite possibly the most ringing endorsement of a release period you can have. So it's been lovely in that respect, and I agree with you. Like that, there have been we were expecting big titles this year, and they've not quite matched up, and it'll be interesting to see if that's a trend that continues into later on this year. I hope not, but then I've played the hardline beta, so probably
doesn't matter. We'll all be playing Broforce.
We'll be playing Broforce, which had just had a new content drop.
Yeah,
I believe a couple of days ago. It's so good. It's bro good. It's really awesome.
Oh hey, what about Wolfenstein? I mean, that's another big one.
Yeah,
man.
There's been so many games this year that I've been like, oh man, I'm looking forward to playing that, and then just haven't, because I've been too busy.
Yeah, it's been a kick-ass year. I mean, I've spent a stupid amount of my life that I can never get back playing Inazuma 11 Go.
It's been a good year. I wouldn't call it a vintage year so far.
I'm loving it. I've been playing vintage games all the fucking time, mainly on my Vita. Man, the likes of Danganronpa is fucking great. Like Celsator's fucking great. TXK is one of the best shooters I've ever played.
That's true.
3DS
is amazing.
We've had Etrian Odyssey Untold. I mean, that is even the subtitle of that review is vintage character. I mean, that is just a deeply luxurious RPG. That one. It's been I've been having a wonderful time.
So yeah, those are sort of some of our highlights from the first 6 months of this year. We want to hear from you folks. What have you guys been playing over the past half year? Tell us in the comments below. Let us know your thoughts. We will be back next week with another podcast for you. But until then, bye.
Bye.